Well, I finally got my computer back from repair. Hooray and hello everyone! This is Remlays from 40k Theories, and welcome to the February 2023 edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you would like your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Now, let's jump into the questions. Justin Jeffries asks, have you read Gods of Mars by Graham McNeill yet? I have not, sorry. Voice of the Emperor asks, could the C'tan pre-biotransference be the reason the Necron tier were irradiated by their sun in the first place? I don't think so, considering that the C'tan before they got bodies were feasting on stars. So, unless the C'tan, were basically grazing on stars, like taking a bite out of a star here and there, figuratively speaking, if they came across a star that they could feed upon, I think they would just, just drain it of its energy completely, rather than destabilize it to make more radiation. Does that make sense? Brent Feast asks, what was the game in the background of the last video? Legacy of Dawn Herald of Oblivion, which unfortunately has been delisted from Steam, so if you haven't got it now, you're not going to really get a chance to get it, I'm afraid. Not unless they put it back on the... So if you want to play the game, you can't get it from Steam anymore, sorry. Does the current lore still have room for the old style of mindless servant of the C'tan variety of Necron, or is that no longer possible? Off the top of my head, the closest thing you're really going to get these days is from, Imperial Armor Fall of Orpheus, with the Maynarch dynasty. Because the entire dynasty was infected to some degree with the Flare virus, so they become, more aggressive, mindless, just more automaton-like in a way, without actually becoming full-blown flayed ones, if that makes any sense. I think they're the closest you're going to get to old Crons in the current setting. For being so-called opposites, Khorne and Slaanesh have a surprising amount of overlap. Do Tzeentch and Nurgle have less overlap, or do I not just see it because Khorne and Slaanesh are my favourites? Well, the thing about Slaanesh is that they overlap with everyone, because one of the main things about Slaanesh is that, they embody excess, be it excessive bloodshed, excessive scheming, excessive sickness. It all falls to Slaanesh, so there is an overlap between Slaanesh and every other Chaos God. Now, between Tzeentch and Nurgle specifically, there didn't used to be, because they used to be diametrically opposed, because Tzeentch was about change and evolution and Nurgle used to be about stagnation. But for whatever reason, newer lore tends to make Nurgle, also about change to a degree, like he is the cycle of life, death and rebirth and, growth and stuff like that, which seems more like it should be in Tzeentch's wheelhouse, so I don't know why they made that change to Nurgle personally. I personally don't like it, but yeah, they do overlap these days, and it's a bit silly, personally. I keep saying personally a lot, don't I? That's one of the troubles with unscripted videos. You tend to reuse the same words and phrases all the time, don't you? Oh dear, I'll try not to personally say the same things again. Ha ha! I just did. Fuck. Oh dear. Pentadeuce asks, if it's possible to make an identical clone of a Primarch, could you clone any other enhanced humans, such as Custodies or Space Marines? I don't see why not. I'm pretty sure there have been stories about cloned Space Marines anyway, so yeah, it's entirely possible. How many minis are too many minis? When you have a pile of shame that's literally decades old and yet to be painted, if you have that many minis, you have too many. Paint your minis and thin your paints. Yes, typical meme, I'm so funny and down with the kid show. I'm very bitter today and I don't know why. Everything's just falling to pot, I don't know why. Richard Martin asks, are there any stories about the Nids and the Tau? The closest actual story off the top of my head is the short story The Greater Evil, which focuses on the Tau and a Genestealer cult. Has Gilliman reclaimed the 500 worlds of Ultramar? I was unaware he lost them. But then again, if you're referring to the events of the Plague Wars, I assume so, considering that Godblight was one of the more recent events in the timeline, so if he hasn't got them now, he's in the midst of reclaiming them. Are there any good examples of Imperial worlds that are democracies or republics in the modern Imperium? Off the top of my head, no. Because the position of planetary governor tends to be, from every example I've seen at least, tends to be a hereditary position, so it's more akin to like a fiefdom monarchy, if that makes sense. I'm not too versed in politics, so I'm probably going to be very wrong in this regard, but I think the closest you're ever going to get in the Imperium, rather than a true democracy or a republic, is probably something like a constitutional monarchy. Viewing like the Emperor as the head of state effectively, while basically having a parliament on a planet maybe? But I can't name any examples off the top of my head, so if anyone does know, please leave a comment down below. Charlie Mink asks, do you know of any Deathwatch novels or stories to read? Yes, check out the short story Headhunted by Stephen Parker, who also did the Deathwatch novels. And the reason why I say check out Headhunted specifically is because it outright states that the Exorcists are a Grey Knight successor chapter. No, I'm still salty about it. I will continue to be salty about it because picking them a generic Imperial Fist successor is stupid! Oh god, why am I like this today? Man, I tell you what, painkillers, they are great, aren't they? In all seriousness, don't do drugs. It's bad. Since anyone can be an Inquisitor in lore, do you see a point in the Inquisition having army rules at all? Maybe not like a full-blown army, but like, I can imagine it being something like, any Imperial army with certain exceptions like, Custodes or Space Wolves, for example, could maybe take an Inquisitor as an HQ choice? Maybe add some special rules like, an Inquisitor may take, a squad of Tempest Assassins as a bodyguard, that kind of thing, something like that. But a full-blown Inquisition army? I think the Inquisition serve better as things like, allies, or a detachment or something like that, rather than a full-blown army. Have you played any of the Warhammer 40,000 tabletop RPGs? No. I know, I'm a terrible person, but hey. I haven't played much in the way of RPGs in general. I think the first and last RPG I ever played was actually the Aliens RPG. It was myself, Narina, Seraphine, who's a mod on the Patreon Discord server, and one of her friends, whose name escapes me at the moment, I do apologise. But it was pretty fun. Like, I was playing like, the corporate, the Weyland-Yutani executive bloke and just being a bit of a dick to everyone. It was great. Griffin of Might asks, given it has been established that there are times that Xenos tech has been used to develop new tech for the Imperium, are there cases where it is passed off as recovered human tech, or have the Mechanicus found other ways to justify it? I'm sure there are cases like that, but off the top of my head I can't name any. But it does sound something like the Mechanicus, or at the very least certain elements within the Mechanicus, might be willing to do. What is your favourite Joe Hendry song? Ooh, it's a tough one. It's a tie between Go-Go Castle Hendry, Edge's Bitch, and Wave Your Hands. The I Believe in Joe Hendry song. Yes, I sang that. What is wrong with me today? Fuck it, I'll just say, that was for you, Scarred. I hope you enjoyed it. While clearly not canon, what do you think of the idea that the Exorcists are actually loyalist word-bearers, and that possession and exorcism is an additional way to protect against the influence of Lorgar? I think it's a pretty cool idea. It's definitely better than making them generic Imperial fists, and no, I will die on this hill, goddamn you! Oh god, what fucking that? Oh god. Don't worry, I'll be fine. But yes, going back to the original point, I like the idea. It'll never be canon, but I like the idea. Brandon A asks, would you like more Acolytes for your Ordo, and if so, what kind? I'm not sure what kind, because, any potential, recruits would have to be heavily scrutinised. The current retinue, as it were, is Narina, who serves as Interrogator now, congratulations on your promotion, her Ogrim bodyguard, Fug, who's a bonehead, a sergeant of the Praetorian Guard Regiment named Reginald Whitecliffe, who fancies himself to be a bit of a big game hunter, and was actually recruited because he took out Arcana effects with a single shot from his long las. So, big game hunter and all that, classic Victoria era vibes, that kind of thing. and a rat-skin shaman named Blind Snake Finds Water, who serves as Narina's mentor in regards to mastering her psychic abilities. There are a few other potential recruits who I need to vet, as it were, but I might make an update about that in the future. Are there any HRUD models? To my knowledge, no. I know a while ago there was someone trying to pass off an old quote-unquote Rogue Trader HRUD model, but it was actually a 4th edition Skaven model with a 2nd edition Eldar lasgun clapped onto its hands, so to my knowledge they don't actually exist. Do you think that Games Workshop knows about how much love Clone Grim is getting? Yes, but they probably don't give a toss, to put it bluntly. Because it was a character that was created by an author who no longer works for Games Workshop, so they probably wouldn't want to bother with royalties, I imagine. Austin Horner asks, do you think there would have been any major consequences to if instead of Logan Grimnar unknowingly having the axe forged by Khorne himself with which to banish Magnus, that the Thousand Sons had succeeded in completely wiping out all Space Wolves on Fenris? Well, if the Space Wolves chapter was utterly destroyed, that in itself would have huge consequences. But then again, we'd probably just get, another Soul Drinker situation. By that I mean, oh, the chapter's been destroyed. Fuck it, remake the entire thing with Primaris Marines. Kind of like what it did with the Soul Drinkers. So, while the Space Wolves would have been destroyed, they would have been reformed within, a couple of weeks, effectively, figuratively speaking. So, it's one of those things like, on paper it should have a massive effect, kind of like, when the Imperial Fist were wiped out during the War of the Beast. And then they rebuilt the entire chapter in a single afternoon. It was such a wasted, such wasted potential, So there would be consequences, but everything will go back to the status quo because everything finds a way to go back to the status quo apparently. I don't know why, but they do. Fuck it. And finally, Zero Hits asks, there have been several civilizations, human and Xenos, that have been wiped out by the Imperium that may have been beneficial to it if spared. Do any come to mind that you would have liked to still exist, either because they had narrative potential, or just because you liked them? To be honest, the only civilization that comes to mind off the top of my head is the Interrex. I wouldn't want them to come back because their plot point's already been done and it was done perfectly. So don't bother bringing them back because it kind of invalidates their entire plot point in the Horus Heresy series, I'm sure there are some others, but off the top of my head, unfortunately, I just simply can't think of any. I blame these damn painkillers. They're making my brain scrambled like eggs, and now I'm going to get flattened like an omelette. I don't know. I was starting to laugh. But anyway, that concludes this edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you would like your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Until next time, this has been Remlays from 40k Theories, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye!